The lunchroom was usually the loudest place on Bay, so loud you could hear it from halfway down the hall before the doors even swung open. Stainless steel trays clattered, boots thumped on polished floors, and the constant hum of overlapping conversations blended into an energetic roar. For the recruits, this was the one sanctuary in the daily grind where no one was barking orders, where everyone could finally relax, laugh, and inhale a mountain of carbs before the next brutal round of training. Today was no different, or at least that's how it started. At a table near the center of the room sat 4 soldiers, 3 male recruits built like carved stone, and 1 female soldier whose biceps looked capable of bending rifles into pretzels. They were in the middle of some joke one of the men had barely finished telling, and all 4 of them were erupting into laughter, so loud a few heads turned their way. And then he actually tried saluting the mop bucket. One of the soldiers roared, slamming his hand on the table. His tray rattled violently, the others burst into harder laughter, tears forming in the corner of the woman's eyes. "You're lying." She laughed. "That didn't happen." "It did," he insisted, gasping between laughs. "It winked at him, I swear." They were laughing so hard that none of them noticed the sudden drop in noise around them. At first, it was subtle, like someone slowly turning down the volume knob on a radio. But within seconds, the entire cafeteria shifted from chaotic chatter to uneasy murmuring. It wasn't the joke that did it, it was him. Standing directly behind their table, silent as snowfall, was an elderly man wearing a sharp red blazer that looked wildly out of place among hundreds of camouflaged uniforms. His white hair was combed neatly, his posture rigid and upright, his expression unreadable. He didn't look confused or lost, just observing. The 4 soldiers finally noticed when one of the men wiped his eyes from laughing and froze mid-motion. "Ah," he whispered, suddenly sitting up straighter. "Guys, someone's watching us." The others turned, and their laughter shut off instantly. The woman straightened her back so fast her chair scraped the floor. Sir, are you looking for someone?" she asked, trying not to sound nervous. The elderly man didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved slowly across their faces, then across the entire cafeteria, scanning everything and everyone like he was taking inventory. Rows of soldiers now sat stiffly at attention, whispering only when they thought he wasn't looking. "Who is that?" One soldier muttered from another table. "No idea." Another whispered back. "He's gotta be someone important, or someone's grandfather wandered in." But nothing about the man suggested confusion. There was a weight to him, something in the way he carried himself. Even the youngest recruits who couldn't articulate it felt it instinctively. Finally, the older man spoke. His voice was calm, low, and steady. "You all seem to be enjoying yourselves," he said, his eyes still fixed on the soldiers at the center table. "Yes, sir," the woman replied quickly. "Just lunchtime, sir." His expression remained unchanged, but his gaze dropped to their trays. "Rice, vegetables, a few pieces of chicken, and half-finished drinks." He nodded once, almost ceremonially. "This base has good food," he said simply, "better than it used to." The recruits exchanged confused glances. What did that mean, used to? Had he been here before? One of the men cleared his throat carefully. "Sir, may we help you with something?" Again, the older man didn't reply immediately. His eyes swept across the cafeteria again, this time lingering briefly on the unit insignias each soldier wore. He seemed to be searching for something, or remembering something. Then he said something that made every soldier at the table sit up straighter. "I built this place," he said softly, "a long time ago." The 4 soldiers blinked. Built as in designed it, constructed it, or did he mean something else entirely? Before anyone could ask, the doors at the far end of the cafeteria slammed open. A senior officer rushed inside, face pale, eyes wide when he saw the old man standing alone in the center of the room. "Oh no," the officer muttered. "You found the cafeteria?" The officer jogged toward him, straightening his uniform as he approached. "Sir," he said breathlessly, "we've been looking everywhere for you." The older man's only response was a small, knowing smile. And across the cafeteria, the soldiers exchanged the same silent thought. Who, exactly, is this man? The tension that had settled over the cafeteria didn't evaporate when the elderly man left. If anything, it grew thicker, like fog trailing in his wake. By the time the lunch period ended and soldiers filed out into the long barracks hallway, every cluster of recruits was buzzing with half-whispered theories. It didn't help that the officer escorting the mysterious guest had looked absolutely terrified. Soldiers noticed things. They didn't need to be told when something was unusual. Sergeant Epler, the sharply built woman from the cafeteria table, walked down the hallway with a tray under her arm, listening without meaning to. The walls echoed with fragments of hurried speculation. Did you see how the captain reacted? He looked like he was about to faint. I'm telling you, that guy wasn't normal. He walked in like he owned the place. No, like he used to own it. Epler kept walking, but curiosity tugged at her like a hand on her sleeve. Up ahead, two young soldiers huddled near the equipment lockers, whispering so urgently they didn't even notice her approach. I heard he's some kind of retired general. One said, eyes wide. Doesn't look like any general I've seen. What generals have you seen? The first one shot back. Shut up. You know what I mean. Epler finally stepped in. You two know hallway gossip is how people end up doing push-ups until sunrise, right? Both soldiers snapped to attention instantly. Sergeant, we weren't gossiping. We were just discussing base history. She raised a brow. Sure, and I'm the Queen of England. They swallowed in unison, but before she could lecture them further, another pair of soldiers slowed as they passed, whispering more boldly. No, bro, listen. My cousin in logistics says the old man's name is classified. Classified? Classified how? Like, you don't say it unless you want someone from higher up knocking on your door. Epler crossed her arms. You heard this from your cousin. The soldier froze, realizing she'd heard him. Maybe, possibly, in theory. And who is your cousin? In theory. She stared him down until he mumbled an apology and hurried away. But inside, she wasn't annoyed. She was intrigued, because the truth was, she had noticed something too. The way he stood, the way he scanned the room. The way his eyes didn't miss a single detail, the way he said, I built this place, a long time ago. No average civilian talked like that, certainly not one casually strolling into a modern military base without an escort. As she turned the corner, she found Corporal Reyes leaning against the wall, arms crossed, waiting for her. He was one of the soldiers from her lunchtime table, broad-shouldered, quick-witted, and annoyingly observant. You heard the chatter? He asked. Everyone has, she replied. It's like someone dropped a grenade full of rumors. Reyes nodded. I'm not gonna lie. I kinda want to know who he is. Epler exhaled. Same. They started walking together toward the training wing, passing more clusters of murmuring soldiers. One group near the water fountain spoke in hushed excitement. I think he's some kind of founder, like one of the original architects of the training program. No way, dude. If he were that important, we'd have heard about him. Would we? Some of the oldest programs on base are still classified. Another soldier shivered. He didn't blink. Not once. I swear I watched him for like 30 seconds. That's because you're weird, someone else muttered. Epler suppressed a smile. They reached the training wing entrance, but before they stepped in, Reyes lowered his voice. Sergeant, did you see the captain's face when he saw him? Yes, she said quietly. He looked scared. Reyes nodded. Exactly. There was a beat of silence, not confused, not surprised, terrified. That meant the old man wasn't just some VIP. He was someone the officers knew. Someone whose presence meant something they didn't dare say aloud. Epler finally spoke, her tone almost reluctant. I don't like mysteries on base. Yeah, Reyes agreed, but this one's not going away. They entered the training wing, expecting the usual noise of soldiers prepping for afternoon drills. But instead, the entire room was buzzing like a disturbed hive, everyone talking over each other. Epler paused. Okay, she muttered. What now? A soldier jogged up breathlessly. Sergeant, Corporal, you're not going to believe this, word is. The old man is in the command building right now, and every high-ranking officer is with him. Reyes whistled low. That's not normal. No, Epler said. It's not, and for the first time since joining the unit, she felt a chill run down her spine that training never prepared her for. Something big was happening, something hidden, something old, and it had just walked into their cafeteria wearing a red blazer. The briefing room was already packed when Sergeant Epler and Corporal Reyes arrived. The heavy door closed behind them with a metallic thud, muffling the hallway noise and sealing everyone inside a box of tension and anticipation. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a pale glow over dozens of soldiers lined up in tight, orderly rows. Usually, a briefing like this meant a mission update, a training overhaul, or, on rare occasions, some emergency protocol. But this time, everyone already knew the topic, or at least, they thought they did. Commander Hall stood at the front, hands gripping the edges of the lectern with a stiffness that immediately put the room on edge. He was a man known for composure under pressure. Whether confronted with equipment failures, surprise inspections, or field emergencies, he never lost his cool. But now his jaw was tight, his posture rigid, and his eyes flicked toward the door every few seconds like he expected someone, or something, to walk in. Epler felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Reyes whispered under his breath, "If he tells us we're all being deployed early, I'm going back to the cafeteria." Epler elbowed him lightly. "SHH, he's starting." The commander cleared his throat. "Afternoon, soldiers." His voice lacked its usual force. "I'll make this briefing short." That alone was strange. Commander Hall loved long speeches. "You all encountered a visitor on base today." A ripple of quiet spread across the room. Not laughter, not chatter. Just an uneasy shift of posture as everyone reacted to the obvious understatement. "Visitor, sure, and a hurricane was just a light breeze." Commander Hall continued. "I'm aware there are rumors circulating. Some of you have shared theories. Others," his eyes flicked toward the back row where two privates sat unnaturally still, "have taken creative liberties." A few soldiers snickered nervously, but then the commander's expression hardened. "I am telling you now, drop every rumor, stop the speculation. No gossiping, no whispering, no guessing." Silence fell heavy and immediate. "Do I make myself clear?" Hall barked, his first sign of normal command tone. "Yes, sir." The room answered in unison, but Epler noticed something off. His voice shook. Not much, but enough for someone trained to detect microtells. The commander took a breath, bracing himself. "The individual you saw is not a recruit, not a retired officer, and not a civilian on a tour. He is here on official business. That is all you need to know." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Reyes leaned closer to Epler and murmured, translation, "He's higher than high." "Shut up," she whispered back, though she agreed. The commander rubbed the bridge of his nose before continuing. "His identity is not to be discussed. Not in the barracks, not in the cafeteria, not during drills, not at all. There are consequences for failing to follow this directive." He looked so serious, so somber, that a cold wave washed over the group. It was the eyes of a man who wasn't threatening punishment, eyes of a man who was afraid of something worse. One soldier raised his hand. "Sir, are we in danger?" The commander paused. It wasn't the question that stunned the room. It was the way Hall hesitated before answering. "No," he said carefully. "You are not in danger." He didn't say we, he said you. Epler caught it instantly. So did Reyes, judging by his sharp inhale. Another soldier spoke up. "Sir, what does he want on base? Why is he being escorted by top brass?" Commander Hall's gaze darkened. He stared at the soldier so intensely that the young man slowly lowered his hand without needing to be told. "Your job," Hall said coldly, "is not to question classified matters." The room froze. Classified? He finally said it out loud. Hall took another breath, and this time, something in his voice softened. "Just a fraction. Listen to me," he said, stepping out from behind the lectern. "I know this is unusual. I know you've never seen someone like him before, but understand this. His presence here is not an accident, and it is not temporary." A fresh wave of whispers tried to rise, but the commander silenced them with a single look. "He will be observing operations, quietly. You may see him in the mess hall, on the range, or even during drills. Treat him with respect. Do not approach him, do not question him, and do not interfere." He held their gaze for a long, heavy moment. "Above all," he said, "do not underestimate him." That line struck the room like a lightning bolt. A frail, elderly man in a red blazer. Not to be underestimated. Epler felt a chill edge down her spine. The commander stepped back, exhaled slowly, and delivered his final warning. And if you're wondering why every officer on this base is treating him like a loaded weapon, don't. His voice dropped to a near whisper. Some things aren't meant to be understood. He nodded once, dismissed. The room erupted, not loudly, but with a tidal wave of hushed confusion as soldiers rose, exchanging brief, stunned looks. Reyes ran a hand over his face. "Well," he muttered, "I feel so much better now." Epler didn't answer, because the commander's last words were still echoing in her mind like a drumbeat. Do not underestimate him, and that, more than anything, terrified her.